View from the Gutters, episode 102. Welcome to View from the Gutters, the comic book podcast where each episode we discuss a collected edition, trade paperback, or graphic novel, and then recommend and vote on the book for the next episode. Warning: the discussion portion of this show has massive spoilers for that book. On this episode, we discuss Creature Tech, and to skip ahead to the recommendation section, skip to 111.46.
All right. Well, welcome to
Are you ready now?
I'm ready.
Are you?
Welcome to Are You Ready? The podcast where we ask the most important question: Are you ready?
So, Cade, are you ready?
No.
Okay.
All right. We'll come back to you later. All right.
Toby?
We're gonna talk to some people on the street.
Wait.
If they're ready.
How did I make you laugh?
I don't know. It just like all of it got weird.
I was going to say, I'm ready.
Nice.
I'm ready.
Ready to go. Yeah, I'm Andrew Chard.
I'm Joe Preddy.
I'm Tobias Panchin.
I'm Cade Reynolds. And what would you do for a Klondike bar?
Oh, a lot of things.
I'm not a fan.
things.
I'd rather have an
Really?
ice cream sandwich.
Okay,
Yeah.
I like ice cream sandwich. I think I would have to go with the drumstick over all of them. Or,
That's fair.
or a
That's fair.
creamsicle.
I would go ice cream sandwich.
I'm gonna say. I mean, if we have the choice, I'm gonna say Choco Taco because I personally think
I
that's
ate
the
one
king.
the other day, and they're not as good as I remember from when I was a kid.
They have
just gonna say
different
that.
flavors now. They're actually owned by Klondike now, though. So I guess I don't know. Like, what would you do for Choco Taco?
I like the ice cream sandwiches that have chocolate chip cookies on each side.
That's fair.
I really
Yeah.
like
That's fair.
those.
Yeah.
The flying saucers.
There's
that
a,
what that's called?
they make one with the Nestle chocolate chip cookies, but
There was
I think
a-
it's flying saucers.
there's a chain of grocery store, like low price grocery stores in this area, grocery outlet. I don't know how big their region is.
I
But
don't know.
last
Most
summer
of the West.
it was super hot out, and they had these ice cream sandwiches. It was 2 chocolate chip cookies with chocolate ice cream, fudge, and chocolate chips.
Jesus Christ.
And Jesus Christ, did I
diabetes.
eat a lot of those last summer.
That's fair. That's definitely fair.
Did you say and diabetes?
Yeah.
Yeah, just straight up
It
diabetes.
comes with free diabetes.
free diabetes.
Diabetes.
I'm getting a lot of digital clicking on this, so hopefully that isn't transferring to the capture, but we'll see.
Do you want to pause it for a second?
No, I don't. I don't know if it's actually happening in the sound, so we'll roll with it.
All right.
I don't know that I can fix it either by just stopping and checking. But anyway, let's roll with this episode. Whatever, I don't care.
103.
We're talking about Creature Tech.
No. it's
102.
Episode 102.
I don't care.
I'm in the future.
And real quick, before we get into episode 102, I just wanted to give a shout out to our Patreon supporters.
Yes, thank
We
you.
launched our Patreon last week. We've had a bunch of people sign up. You guys are super awesome, and this is really great. We're going to be able to do good things with this money, so thanks a lot.
Yes, and also there were a couple people that were we got a comment in particular that was worried that the Patreon might create some kind of podcast class system, a pod class system, if you will. And I wanted to say that the content we create, the podcast and stuff like that, like I don't think we'll ever create content specifically for our Patreon users. Anything we
certainly
make
not.
for our Patreon users will come out of us making the show.
Or it'll be some way for us to say thank you, but that thank you will not be a private show.
It's not. Yeah, it's like we're not going to get naked for anybody. Sorry, guys.
I will, but
I mean,
that is just for free.
Chard
You don't
at View
have
from
to
the
be.
gutters. He does private cam shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a Patreon subscriber for that.
No. You just have to ask. I mean,
Yeah. That's never going to go
but
behind a paywall.
yeah, that's we're
But yeah,
good there.
anything that would ever make it into the show before the Patreon is going to be on the show after the Patreon. Anything that goes out to those people who have given us a little bit of something, it's going to be a special thank you. It's going to be a picture or something that we cut out, and anything. I think a lot of the stuff that goes on there will eventually filter out to everybody anyway. But I mean, it's throwaway stuff.
You can.
It's
It's not throwaway. It's just garbage.
Well,
This
we
is
just
all
lost our
garbage.
2 Patreons.
Everyone
Well, what-
unsubscribe from Patreon. No, it's
what I mean is, it's like
it's behind the scenes. It's bonus
Exactly.
features. It's the difference between getting to watch it on Netflix and going out and buying the DVD.
Yeah, I
you
think
get
that
to
is-
experience the full experience on Netflix, but what you get from buying the DVD is extra stuff that you wouldn't normally get. And that's kind of what it's like. Is it's just like the little bonus features and stuff. We'll do behind the scenes. We want to chat with you. We want to do cool stuff. So I think that it's do you want to buy the 3-disc special edition DVD?
Right.
I guess is how I would phrase it.
I think that's fair.
That it gets you in, you get extra stuff, but you're not gonna not see the feature film because
absolutely.
you didn't buy it. Like you can get, there's other ways to get it, and
Yeah,
we'll
I mean,
keep our
I
podcast.
don't fucking listen to podcasts that cost money.
No, we'll keep our podcast will be free. Back Matter will always be free. The new Singles Club will be free. Any new podcasts that we launch on the network will be free. Like that's the whole point. Is we just want to make more podcasts, but we also want to.
We want to share our stuff with more people, not
Yeah.
fewer.
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to address that on air.
Yeah.
Because I always feel like, they said it on air. That's kind of like ironclad. Like
Now we can't take it back.
We can't.
except
Yeah,
I
we
could
can't take
edit
it back
this
because you're gonna be like episode 102. You motherfuckers said it.
Yeah.
I'm coming after you now.
View from the Gutters is not a legally binding contract.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, basically, Anyways,
So, Creature Tech.
creature.
Yeah. So, Kate, you recommended this.
I did, and it came from listener Brandon Hill.
Yeah. Number one chard fan. I don't know if you knew that was a thing. It is.
You say it all the time.
Well, that's what he says. He says it to me all the time. So that's a real hashtag. You guys can use it. That's okay. One time I said that only Brandon Hill can use it and no one can use it. I'm changing my mind. Everyone can use that.
You want to
Taking
get
it
that
back.
You want to get that out there?
Nah, I'm just saying. If you
Can I
want to
be-
use
Just
it,
putting it out there.
Can I use number 6 Chard fan?
that's perfectly acceptable.
So, Kate,
I'm not going to make a mad joke here. I'm not going to do it.
what did you think about Creature Tech?
I really liked it. I thought it was. It's one of those short and sweet little slices of the comic world that tend to disappear really quick after they come out. And it's always nice to go back and read some of that stuff. I thoroughly enjoyed myself reading it. I thought it's one of those like short and sweet, just neat stories. Like,
Yeah.
very creative.
Oh yeah, it's like 200 pages, but it's short and sweet in that it reads very smoothly and very quickly. Like the pace is very fast. It's much more akin to like I don't know, like a Sunday strip or something where it's just like, the line work is very clean and very precise, and it's also there's not a ton of backgrounds. It's very like, I don't want to say simple. That's the word I'm trying to avoid here.
Well-
because it's not simple in that it is not skilled. It's simple in its elegance of like execution.
Yeah, it's the opposite of something like Watchmen, which is incredibly dense.
Right.
And you really have to stop and like read all of the myriad word balloons. And it's like, it's dense, it's heavy.
Right.
This is light.
Yeah.
It's fun.
And I think that the simplicity of it is in its like efficiency.
Yeah.
Like it's what's in the panel is what needs to be in the panel, and what's said is what needed to be said, and it's not like a whole ton of extra stuff.
You
Yeah.
could say it's like a light and fluffy ice cream as opposed to a really dense.
It's like soft serve versus frozen rock solid.
Something like that. I mean, I forgot to read the book until today. And so I broke into Joe's house and I borrowed his copy and I read it in like 45
He also
minutes.
pooped all over the place.
That is your dog, not me.
No, it was I have a little dog. These were not little poops.
Joe, I bury my poops in your sock drawer.
Well, that's the last time I ever give you the keys to Joe's house. I read it in between the time that Toby recorded something in the studio and we started recording, which was like a half hour. So,
Yeah, it's a
quick read.
quick read.
I really enjoy it, though. Kate, was there anything else you wanted to say about the book before we all start talking?
I'm not sure. I'm sure there's going to be stuff I'll add later.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I really liked it.
Nice.
I was excited to get this recommendation from a listener, and I went out and got it, and I really liked it,
Nice.
and I'm very glad.
Sweet.
Yeah, I also really liked it. It strikes me as a really good all ages book for somebody like Joe's daughter Audrey, or somebody else who's in that like 10 to 13 age range where they're like, they don't really need the little kid stuff anymore, but they're not necessarily interested in like the dark and gritty adult stuff. Like they just want something that's fun and interesting. And I think that this slots really well into that niche.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. There's nothing like super adult content in this book. And I think that this is the kind of book that if you read it when you were like 13, you would go back and keep rereading it and getting more and more stuff out of it every time.
Yeah, it feels like the kind of book that I would have read over and over and over again if I had been 15 years younger. Yeah, I definitely am in the same boat. Like, this is the kind of book that is super fun to read once, but is that kind of fun nostalgia book where, like, if you reread it every couple years, you'll get new stuff out of it, you'll appreciate more about it, you'll have grown as a person and also, like, as a connoisseur of comics or art or whatnot, and you'll see things you didn't see the first couple times you read it. And I love books like that, for sure.
Yeah, this was actually one of the first comic books that Audrey read. And she actually got really excited. She was like, let me on the episode. And I was like, no, who are you, little girl? Stop talking to me, because we were in public and I like to alienate her. Like, no, I'm just kidding. No, she was actually really excited that we were talking about it. And I know that it's...
Is that why Brant isn't here this week? Did Audrey do something to get on the episode?
Yeah.
Shit.
Brant's sick because someone mysteriously poisoned him.
If she did, then I'm impressed, because she was with me all weekend.
That's what you think.
Maybe she, I don't know, man. Maybe she drove down here.
She's actually a member of a cult of assassins that all got plastic surgery to look exactly the same so they could swap in and out, and that way they all have alibis as long as one of them is with you.
Is that the plot of Dollhouse? I've never watched that show.
Actually, it's from the Marvel G.I. Joe comic book.
Good.
Cobra Commander had Crimson Guard,
I remember.
private guards, and they all had plastic surgery to look the same, and they all were named Fred.
And then one of them kills him, spoilers, and takes his place, right?
He doesn't kill him. He shoots him in the back and then buries him in a shallow grave.
Right.
Spoiler alert, he didn't die.
Right.
And he comes back later.
No, he's Cobra Commander.
Who's the guy with the Serpentor, right? I had that action figure when I was a kid. He was rad.
Yeah, if you had the Cobra Commander with, like, the silver armor, like he looked like a robot, that was Fred in disguise.
The more you know.
Well, Fred, you wily motherfucker, you. But this, I have very fond memories of Creature Tech, because it was one of the first things that Brant let me, when I first met Brant, way back in the age of dinosaurs. Now, Brant is not that old. I am that old, but Brant is not. Back when I first moved up to Washington, which was a while ago. And I really do have a lot of nostalgia for this book. There are things... So I've been spending all day trying to think of how to phrase this, right?
Right.
And I think... what I notice, I think, is what I'm going to go with. Because at first I was like, I have an issue with it. And I was like, no, I don't really have an issue with it. But I've noticed that Doug TenNapel is fond of his spiritual ideas and inserts them into many of his works, which is fine, you know. I mean, like, I don't think he ever does it to the point where it feels like preachy or soapboxy.
I think it was bordering on preachy.
But it does brush right up against that line.
It was in the neighborhood
points
of preachy.
But then
a little bit.
I always feel like the story kind of bears it out to some extent in the end, and so you're like, okay, well, that's kind of why that was important. You know, it's like, stories are about growth and change, and normally the growth and change of the main character involves a spiritual growth and change as well as an emotional or mental, you know, growth and change. And that's fine. That's like, it's not a problem. There was definitely a time in my life where I would have had a problem with it because I was a lot less tolerant. Because there was actually a time when I screamed more than I do now.
No, I'll jump on that grenade. I'll say it bothered me a bit. The conversations that he had with his father, where his father was talking about intelligent design.
Yeah.
And kind of the implications that as an intellectual, as an academic, he's looking down his nose at everybody else. You know, it's like, oh, well, they're locals, they're simpletons, they don't know what's going on. And then you've got, like, was his assistant, Jim.
Yeah.
who's like a super genius.
Right.
And like he's just playing folks. Like he doesn't look down his nose at people because he's not highfalutin.
Well,
like I feel like there was something kind of dismissive in that.
I think that that's a cool moment though, because, and I don't disagree with you, but what I liked about it was he has this attitude towards local folks, but there are these people in this community that he genuinely loves and respects. And as the book goes on, like, you learn that he really cares about these guys. And his assistant is one of those people. And he's like, how are you in this town? Like, how are you here? How are you just living here? You're a genius. You don't need to be around these people. You could do more than that. But at the end of the book, you see the main character staying in the community, wanting to be around those folks.
Yeah.
And I think that that's his arc. Like, that's, I don't disagree that it's
He doesn't
not
want to be
preachy,
there,
but
and so I think he is. And that's kind of the thing. Is like, I agree with you, and I think you find these characters a lot in pop culture, right? The imperious smart person, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's condescending. Like, we were just having a conversation about this the other day. Me and Toby were. There are two kinds of smart people in pop culture, right? There's the imperious ass, and there's the I can't function like a normal person, right? The social anxiety, crazy, like, you know, like just social anxiety type.
Everyone
crazy
on The
person.
Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, exactly, right?
well, or Sherlock Holmes.
Well, and that's the
And then,
imperious.
like,
Sherlock
right.
Holmes is
Or
the imperious
me.
ass, right?
Yeah.
And they're by and large, they have trouble
No,
interacting.
Sherlock
They
Holmes
need-
is also the social anxiety, like,
Well,
heroin
drug addict,
addict,
but
can't get out of the house without, like,
The Benedict Cumberbatch BBC version is.
well, and even the Robert Downey Jr. one is as well.
Yeah, but
like-
that's largely a modern affectation of the character.
Yeah, but he's also not really socially well adjusted in the books, even. Like,
Yeah.
people don't like him, and he
I
doesn't like
suppose
them
that's true.
either. You know, like, it's a mutual distaste for one another, because he's like, he's always the guy like, don't you see? Like, it's very obvious, and everyone else is like, yeah, I don't see it, asshole. Like, I clearly I'm not getting it. Like,
Well,
I'm not
right.
figuring it out. Tell
I
me,
mean,
you tell me what's happening.
I think that.
But I don't disagree. Like, those are definitely
Yeah,
archetypes.
right. These are the two archetypes we have, right? Because, like, I think that the social anxiety Holmes is more a product of Stephen Moffat's, like, just love of that kind of, like, socially anxious nerd character, because he does it with the Doctor all the time. But that's not a conversation I want to have, because I'll start screaming, and that won't be good. But, so you have these two archetypes of smart people, right? But, and so, I do think that and I'm totally spacing on his name right now, Dr. Ong.
Yeah.
His whole thing is that he doesn't want to be there. And that man, if he doesn't want to be in this town, he is kind of there because he has a job there. And,
Also family.
and well, yeah, and family there, but like, he's not comfortable with himself. He's not comfortable with where he's at. And it manifests itself in this way of like being imperious and stuff, because like at the end of the story, he does want to stay there, and he does
Yeah.
find reasons to stay there, and he mellows the fuck out.
And I think that that's the most relatable part of his character.
Well,
to
I think
me.
the kung fu part is, but
Okay,
that's just
that's
because
fair.
I'm trained as a
Yeah.
deadly weapon.
That's
I
fair.
think the part where his heart is crushed, like, and ripped out of his body, that's the part.
and
I
he has a
empathize with the
symbiote
most.
alien.
Well, that makes sense.
That taught him kung fu. I think that I can totally relate to the kind of looking down on locals, wanting to get out of your hometown kind of feeling, because I think it's something that we've all
Oh,
like
God,
happens
yes.
to everyone, you know, or a lot of people, is they're just like, I cannot wait to get out of this town
Yeah.
and
No.
see what else there is in the world. And there's definitely a part of me that looks at people that didn't leave my hometown and goes, why are you still there?
Mm-hmm.
And their response is like, well, I like it here. And I'm like, well, that's fair, but like, I still don't understand. Like, and some of my really, really close friends like continue to live in my hometown, and I'm just like, I don't get it. And I always looked down on it as like a small town, realizing now as an adult that it is not a small town, that it is actually sort of a large town, and I live in a much smaller town now.
Yeah.
But I still feel better having left, and I think that I really like the arc of Dr. Ong in this book of like learning to accept his place in not only in the community but in kind of the world at large with that. So although I think it does borderline on preachy and on like,
Well, it's a little bit
I don't know.
weird because like they go through this whole beginning thing where he's like, he grew up in this town and he left and he never wanted to come back until he had to.
Right.
And then he sees the girl and he's like, oh, it's the girl that we all made fun of as kids.
Yeah.
And yet throughout the entire rest of the story to everybody else, he seems a stranger. Like nobody goes like, I knew you when you were 6. Like
Right.
don't play like you're some big highfalutin guy. Like you don't get a sense reading this that he knows anybody in this town, who they are, or what they're like. And that felt odd to me.
I think it's supposed to. I think he's supposed to feel disjointed. Like
the odd man out.
yeah, I think that's a narrative device to kind of exaggerate like that he kind of feels alone and out of place. He feels he belongs in some like great, like some big city doing very important stuff.
Well, that also ties into probably the biggest issue that I had with this series. And I don't want to play it up like, oh man, I fucking hate another thing. But like I came into this discussion having an issue with it and talking to you guys like, I'm like, no, I actually really do like this, but it still does bother me. I feel like this book has a pacing issue. And I feel like it's partly like it feels like it was written to be a cartoon series. Like this is the 3-part pilot episode that then launches into an ongoing series of adventures.
I can see that. I can totally see that.
I mean, I think it's possible that was even a thing, but Doug TenNapel did Earthworm Jim.
Right. He's done a number of things.
Didn't he have a series too?
Yeah,
Earthworm Jim had a
totally did.
cartoon
that's
series.
right. That is exactly what I'm thinking of. I'm like, what's the one with Queen Slug for a butt? That was Earthworm Jim.
It totally was.
Her name is Queen Bee.
No, there's a something slug for a butt. That's like a character. I know. I'm looking.
I
it
know
up
that
right
there's
now.
Professor Monkey for a head.
Yeah.
Is that who you're thinking of?
No,
Okay.
I'm gonna look it up right now. I vividly remember this.
I
But
don't.
in any case, like, there's a certain level in which things in this book seem to happen too quickly or in an oddly paced sort of way. And reading it, I'm looking at it and I'm picturing it in my head and I'm going, okay, if you took this scene, these pages, these panels, and you animated them, it would play out in this way. And I goes, well, that makes a lot of sense if it were to be animated, which it's not.
Right.
Yeah, well, and I think part of that comes down to that some scenes, I feel like we read them faster than they're supposed to be.
That could very well be.
Because, like, some of the scenes with little dialogue, as comic readers, we kind of breeze through those pretty quickly. We're just like, art.
Yeah.
And while we are taking in the art, we're going faster than maybe it was intended to.
And I think that we've talked before about how really talented artists can force pacing onto the reader by using panels with really heavy information in them, just visual information, like a lot of stuff going on in the scene to slow down the way you read, and then panels with like almost nothing in it to speed it up. But like I said at the beginning, like this is more like Barry Ween or like a comic strip where there's like not a ton of information in the background, and so it reads really fast for us because the visual information isn't there to slow us down.
It feels to me like I don't want to say like a pulp movie, but like that kind of thing where it's like, here's your premise, here's the body, here's the finale, and like it feels it. I mean, I do agree that it feels very quickly. I don't know that it had a pacing problem, but that I think that it's actually possible to sometimes read a work so fast that you don't notice that there's a pacing problem. So
Yeah.
I mean,
And I
like,
think
I
my-
honestly wish that the book had made me read it slower.
Yeah.
Like I wish it took longer. And I'm not sure if that would detract from the elements that make it accessible, especially to younger readers.
I think it might.
But from my own perspective, like, I wish that it had gone, like, that I didn't just breeze through it.
see, and I wonder if that's in the end the reason that kind of the more spiritual aspects of this book don't bother me is because they're kind of gone so quickly.
That very well could be.
I wonder if it did make it, if it was more of a thoughtful piece, if they would bother me a little bit more. Because so this is not the only Doug TenNapel work I've read. I've read Black Cherry, I want to say, which also has a very heavy spiritual angle, and Earthboy Jacobus, which also does. And I think both of them have a much heavier spiritual component than this one does. But I think they are also kind of, I think those are both a little bit more on kind of the more, a little bit more on the thoughtful side. They're still very action oriented stories, but Black Cherry is a redemption story and Earthboy Jacobus is kind of halfway in between. And if I'm like totally forgetting huge chunks of those and missing the point, it's because I haven't read them in a while. So I apologize. You can yell at me if you need to. That's fine. I understand.
Joe at viewfromthegutters.com.
Joe at viewfromthegutters.com, or in the Facebook page where
right there,
public forum, and just be like, Joe, you ignorant twit.
Also, I need to
You're
read
ignorant
this.
slut.
You vainglorious jackass.
You vainglorious jackass.
I have to read this from the Earthworm Jim wiki.
Ooh.
The evil queen, pulsating, bloated, festering, sweaty, pus-filled, malformed slug for a butt, Queen Slug for a Butt for short, is the final foe that Jim faces in the video game Earthworm Jim. She's the twin sister of Princess What's-Her-Name. Oh. And in the cartoon, the queen is the ruler of planet Insectia and is voiced by Andrea Martin. So I weirdly remembered that. Just to let everyone know.
How does one forget Queen slugged like a butt? Butt like a slug.
Slug for a butt.
Slug for a butt.
It is her butt is a slug.
Does it say on that page what year Earthworm Jim the cartoon was on?
No, I could look it up though.
Because I'm going to guess it was somewhere around 1993 or 94.
I want to say even
so I
earlier
haven't
than that.
watched it in 20
No,
years.
it had to be around then because the Genesis was like, I don't know, around that time. Because
Maybe,
I
yeah.
think.
But I remembered Professor Monkey for a head.
92,
You did.
I think
That's
is
pretty
the
good.
Sega Genesis.
Which is weird. The weird thing to me is how similar, and I think another thing that kind of endears this book to me is how similar, or how much it reminds me of Scud, not in necessarily content, but in the fact that it seems very unrestrained at parts. Like you've got this praying mantis dude walking around like with overalls and like, you know, a trucker hat on, and he's fishing and doing like, he's doing yokel things, right?
Yeah.
You've got a fucking parasite that attaches to Dr. Ong and learns how to use Kung Fu from watching Kung Fu movies. It's just like that kind of, it's not as out there.
I think that was a style for a time.
Yeah.
Something very weird and outrageous placed into a hypernormal context.
But I think it's something that, I mean, I still think that people try and do it now, and I think a lot of people fail.
I feel like some of that comes down to how the other characters in the book treat that as such.
Well, yeah.
Like at first they're like, yeah, this symbiote is weird, but whatever, it's normal to us. And then like the two yokels find the praying mantis, and their first thought is, let's civilate him.
Yeah, I like that. I love the like him wearing the hunting vest and like shooting the gun, and they're all like "Yee-hoo!" and like fishing.
You're all Walmarted up now.
And I love the part when he dies, and there's like the heaven full of mantis people, and it's like, come, let's lead you into the nope, and then he like floats back down to Earth, and you don't really know if he's like happy to be back or not, but
because
like,
he has no facial expressions at all.
And I really liked that. I liked not knowing and being
I think that takes it takes a certain kind of touch to pull that off and not have you go, this is stupid.
Yeah.
And I know this because I watch Cartoon Network and I see some of the shit they're trying. This is uber wacky. Look at how wacky it is. Isn't that funny? And I'm like, no, it's not funny.
Yeah, and that's definitely a complaint that I had before. I remember specifically when we were talking about the Manhattan Projects. Like, there were a bunch of references like that that didn't appeal to me because I think it's a thing that's easy to overdo. And like getting that pitch just right, where it's like wacky, but not so wacky. You're just like, whatever.
It's this for me, like, and I find this really interesting because it always comes up in my mind that in Manhattan Projects, they will throw words around like the samurai or the death Buddhist, whatever. And the other book that does that more than any other book I've ever read is Planetary.
I knew you
which
were
is a
gonna say
book
that.
that you guys absolutely love, and it drives me insane in Planetary because I'm reading and I'm like, okay, but when does the story happen? And then the last page goes by of Planetary, I'm like, oh, it does, there isn't one. And
that's
then
the thing, like-
and that's the difference is like sometimes it works for you because the package is good enough. And
Yeah.
it's not about the fact that they drop little nuggets or they drop like these weird sayings, or it's like, oh, the Death Buddha's here. It's like the whole package, you buy it, and so the little things inside the package, like you already bought it, so you like it.
And there are
think
moments
that's a
in
fair
Planetary
criticism.
like that don't work for me. Some of the things in the Planetary guide where it's like just a little section, it's like a picture inserted. It's like Axel Brass fights the something or other of blah, blah, blah from the dimension of X or whatever. It's like, whatever. And that's why I say, like, it takes the right touch. Like, it's very easy to oversell that kind of thing. You got to pitch it just right for it to really work. And I think it works a lot of the time in Planetary. Not every time, but a lot of it. And I think it mostly works here. But it's definitely something that Doug TenNapel does a lot. Like,
Well, yeah.
the crazy, wacky thing. And I think that he's generally pretty good at pulling it off.
I think so.
He's a like I said at the beginning, he's a very creative person.
Yeah, and I think that, but I think he's also can editorial. Like he can edit himself, which I think like creative is good, but sometimes creative, like I really think you need to be able to edit yourself, because if you can't,
Oh, absolutely.
and you just like, vomit all over the page. I think that there's very few people that, because I look at somebody like Jim Woodring, who did the Frank book.
Yeah.
And it's like the thing, like the process of his cartooning from his head to his pencil, like these are things that exist in his head, right? And he's like able to kind of get them out, but he does a shit ton of editing. Like he never wants. He will tell a story and then he'll look at it and he'll be like, I don't want to use this because what I'm trying to do is very obvious. Or he'll be like disappointed in those stories. And I read them and I'm like, that's obvious to you? Like you're looking at this and like, that's obvious to you? Because it was fucking like hieroglyphs to me. Like I fought for every fucking last inch in that story. And I mean, I loved it. I think Jim Woodring is a fucking genius, but, I think that like, that's super important because creativity is all well and good and stuff, but like you need to know where the bounds of it are. And I think that's why Doug TenNapel is successful far more than he isn't. Because I actually really like this and I like Earthboy Jacobus too. Black Cherry I thought was a little heavy handed in some places, but that's fine. Like nobody bats 1,000, right? Like if you can bat 400, that's fucking awesome. That's like world record good, right?
Yeah.
I don't know anything about baseball.
You knew that it was baseball, though.
Yeah, well, because you said batting.
Oh,
So you know something
I could have been
about
talking about
baseball.
cricket. No,
I was going to say, and no one talks about cricket.
that's fair. That's fair.
A friend of ours recently posted on Facebook and was like, I think I enjoy cricket now. And I was like, that is the most hipster thing you've ever said. And you've said a lot of those things.
Was it
wait.
Nick?
It was.
Of course it was.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it was.
Oh God.
So, that happened.
That's.
But,
I am so not surprised about that. At
anytime
all.
anyone says cricket, I think of that line from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1 when Casey Jones and Raphael are fighting in the park, and
You gotta
Raphael's
know
like,
what a crumpet is.
yeah,
to
nobody
understand.
understands cricket. You gotta know what a crumpet is to understand cricket. And then he gets hit in the face with a cricket bat. It's great. That movie's brilliant. Genius level. Anyway, back to the book.
Genius level.
Genius level. Back to the book. I think the things that I really enjoyed about it, that I on board with what Joe's saying, because I think it is tastefully edited in some ways, because there's not too much of some stuff and there's just the right amount of another. And I feel like I'm on board with Toby with sometimes it gets a little preachy. And I think it walks the very line of this is too much and this is not enough. Like, it's right on there. And any more, and I would be like, oh, you lost me. And not enough, I don't know that I would have totally noticed like what he was driving at in some of the scenes. So I think that while it could, go either way for some people, it worked on a lot of levels for me because of, not so much because of what was in the book, but because of what wasn't in the book in some places.
Yeah.
And I like a lot of the things that are just, they're in there and there's not an explanation for them. Like, I like the way that he gets into his lab. Is just
the
like
plant elevator.
I
was specifically going to mention that.
Yeah, how does it work? Who cares? It's just a part of the book.
Yeah, it
and
doesn't
you're just,
matter.
Supposed to enjoy it. And
I
love
want to
stuff
build
like
one
that.
in Minecraft.
Oh, you
A
should
plantivator.
definitely need to.
But there's not enough bricks.
You'd figure it out. I'm sure there's mods out there somewhere. Someone go download the plant elevator mod for Minecraft. I love the worm, the giant space worm, like how that opens and ends the story.
Oh,
like
the eel.
The eel, that's what it is. The nice bookend of that, and the constant references to the alien that's in the oddities shop, and that they use that to get there's just like, I feel like everything in the book is either there just for you to go, oh, isn't that clever? Isn't that fun?
One of the things
Or it's necessary.
One of the beats that I really, really loved was the relationship between the evil doctor, what's his name?
Mm-hmm. I don't remember.
And Hellcat.
Right.
Because at the beginning, Hellcat is very demurring. Mm-hmm. And like at the times that you see him throughout the book, like he's very differential to the doctor. And then the doctor loses his hand, and Hellcat's like, oh, now I get his soul. And then immediately there's just this swap where he's like, oh, it's time for dinner.
Right. Yeah, I love that too.
Like
Also,
that
a cat
beat really worked for me.
A cat will eat you if you die. So
Before
also
a dog
accurate.
Will. Before a dog will.
Accurate.
Yes, they're pragmatic.
Yeah. I love the fact that he turns cats into like giant werewolf monsters.
Yeah.
That's like my favorite part of the whole
What does
book.
he keep shouting? Hellcat's Revenge or something like that?
I
think one of my favorite parts was a bat cat.
There's so many cool moments in the book for me, but if I had to pick like what kept me reading, it was the giant army of mutant Hellcats. Like I thought that was rad,
good.
and he's got like a demon hand, and I don't know. It was really fun. I liked all the moments, the one where he's in the office building or the government office getting the files, and then he like pushes him into a closet, and he's like, "Oh no, my whoever I don't remember the name
He's
of the
like,
cat."
you got to come out of the closet, and he's like, in a town like this.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm talking about the moment when he's in the closet and she's like, "Oh no, so and so's in there," and he's like, "Let me guess, so and so's a cat," and he's like, "A cat, my Deus Ex Machina," and he like turns it into a monster cat. Like
Fluffy.
I loved that moment. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of fun going on in this book.
Well, that's kind of, that's what does it for me with this book is just how much fun it is. It's that I never really feel like even during the preachy parts, I don't feel it's taking itself too seriously. It's like, okay, we've set this up. We've got it done. We're done now. Now Kung Fu Parasite time, right? Or like Mantis in fucking hunting vest time. Like those, I just love the imagery of this book so much.
So there is one part that I really don't feel like I necessarily got the full importance of. When he's like unconscious or whatever, he teleports to the alien planet or whatever, and there's all those other dudes with the symbiotes, and then there's the symbiote that's like up on a symbiote cross.
Yeah.
Like, what is he trying to say here?
Yeah, I don't think
it feels like it's almost a Jesus.
I didn't think about it too
metaphor.
much.
I mean, anytime anyone is hanging from a thing,
Yeah.
we'll assume that's
it's
a
clearly
Jesus.
the Cadbury Bunny who we celebrate every Easter.
Like, it's like,
Now
okay,
I'm
this is
thinking
a thing
about
that
bunnies
happened.
nailed to
Like,
a cross.
he teleports,
Thanks, Joe.
and he's on this alien world, and then he sees this thing, and then he's back, and it doesn't seem to
Also,
jive
he
with the rest of the
recognizes
story.
it. He recognizes it too. He's like, "Oh, it's you,"
Yeah.
which is odd.
Like, is he seeing all the symbiotes past hosts? Like, is this a metaphorical scene? Is this actually happening?
Yeah. I liked it because it let me kind of see into more of the world of like what the symbiote's about. And if that scene had not been in there, I think it would have been odd that there was no real mention of like that almost would have seemed like it was a plot device rather than it was part of the story.
Yeah.
The symbiote. And so I liked that scene, and I liked its vagueness, because it was just like, oh, what is this, like a core of symbiote guys? Is this like the Green Lantern core, or is this like the past lives, or is this the past hosts? I mean, is it like, what is this? And it was just enough to make me think about the symbiote enough to, when it went back to the story, I remembered that it wasn't just a plot device.
I always thought,
I
guess what I always thought was that, like, the reason the symbiote was helping him because they had a similar history, or they had like a similar legend or similar mythology or a similar like historical concurrence. I mean, but that's
like it's a Narnia thing. Like,
yeah, like we also had a savior that was nailed up onto
that sacrificed themselves.
That sacrificed themselves. But I don't know. Like, I've often wondered, and I think it's just one of those things where, like, I don't necessarily. I'm sure that Doug TenNapel had an idea when he did that, and I think the thing I kind of like about it, and we've talked about this before with the Tale of Sand and with Frank, is that it's one of the moments in the book, one of the few moments in the book where you actually have to put yourself into it and just kind of tease out what you can, because I think, as once again we've talked about, there's a point where the artist's intent stops and your intent as a reader or as an experiencer kicks in. I was
the audience interpretation.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like, I was watching Blade Runner this weekend, and it was the not good cut. It was the theater cut.
Why?
It was
would
the
you
theatrical
do that?
cut with the narration, and the narration kind of kills the momentum for me. It's like, it's not very good. It feels very out of place. But it allowed me to think, and I'm going to talk about Blade Runner and that. So if you don't want to hear, then you should stop now, even though it's been around for 30 years and there was a big deal with the reissue. Ridley Scott has come out and said that Rick Deckard is a replicant. And I'm like, well, that's cool that that's what you meant it to do. But I'm still going to kind of take my own advice because it's no longer yours, right?
Right.
Like, you put it together and that's cool. Like, your input is definitely helpful and provides context. But I don't necessarily think that you can be, once you've made that, you give it to the world, right? You've given it to your audience and they're going to interpret it.
Author intent is only one component in how a story is understood and appreciated.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, what the story means to you as a reader is the most important thing.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I agree. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, Rick Deckard isn't a replicant and because of this, and this. Like, I believed before Ridley Scott said that he is. But
Well, you almost feel like his statement is irrelevant.
Yeah.
To your enjoyment of the film.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I was actually almost a little sad because I was like, why don't you let other people just experience it for themselves? Like, one of my favorite things about Cowboy Bebop is that Shinichiro Watanabe has come out and said, people have been like, did Spike die? Because the last you see of him is coming down the escalator. And he goes, I left it that way on purpose for the audience to make up their own mind. You tell yourself that story. Like, I've told you the story I wanted you to tell. It's up for you to decide.
Hashtag Harry and Hermione for life.
Word. So, like,
Hashtag, never mind. I'm done with hashtagging for right now.
hashtag,
I've had enough
oh my
hashtag.
God, please shoot me in the head. I'm
Hashtag
done.
enough hashtags for right now.
Word. But I think that's if you walk away from a work like that and you're able to be like, you care enough about it to be like, I really want to understand what this was, then that means that I think that's kind of the ultimate success. There are several movies that I'm obsessed with that I've seen several times, and I couldn't tell you whether or not I really I love them or I enjoy them. All I can say is that I'm obsessed with understanding the meaning, like gaining some sort of meaning out of them because they've just struck a chord. And I think that's a huge success if you can do that.
Can you just give me an example off the top of your head? Because I'm interested.
Oh, movie?
What kind of thing you're talking about?
Well, like, I've talked about this before, but the Solaris, Tarkovsky's Solaris, is a movie that I watch, and he'll spend this long establishing shot. In fact, I can tell you the scene in particular. The two main characters are in the library, And he starts, and they're in zero gravity, so stuff is kind of floating. And he starts at a certain place in the library, and he tracks along a very specific trajectory until the shot stops on them. And like Tarkovsky loved the long shot. He would shoot a whole 3 minutes to establish a shot, right? But like, to me, you don't do that on accident. That's not just something that was like, there was a specific reason. Now, whether it was because he wanted you to take in the scenery because he had set up the set in a certain way, or because he's trying to like point you towards something in the scene, or because he's trying to make a statement about even like time or like place, because I mean, I'm just obsessed with understanding that. And so I watch that scene over and over and over again.
Like establishing shots have long been used for many things. A lot of the times, establishing shots are used to stop the previous scene in your mind.
Right.
So,
right.
like, it's like a chapter break. When in a lot of writers will write chapters, and like George R. R. Martin does this, where he writes each chapter is from a different point of view. A lot of authors will write the next chapter is a new scene. Things have changed between scenes, but sometimes an author will make a chapter break. And the beginning of the next chapter is literally seconds after, or the next line of dialogue after that previous chapter. But the fact that you had to stop, there's a chunk of blank space, you turn the page, there's a chapter header, and then you start reading again, does something to the way you think about that scene.
Absolutely.
And establishing shots are kind of that in film.
And they can also they do that, and they also give you information. Mm-hmm. There's a great establishing shot in North by Northwest where Cary Grant gets off the bus and he's getting ready to do the second meet. And the first establishing shot is a long shot of just all the nothing he's in. And then he gets off the bus and you see him, and just like, Hitchcock is being very specific and showing you there is nobody out here. And then he like does this great job of playing up the tension. Several cars come by, and then it comes into that iconic scene with the crop duster with the gun on it. But it's all set up around that one moment, and to build your tension to see like what's happening, what's going to happen now. And like, I think that Hitchcock was one of those directors that was very deliberate. And I think there are certain creators that just are very deliberate. They include things not because it was there, like, not to be fanciful, but to specifically point you in a certain direction. And
I think that I love that about... So a lot of people are, like, opposed to watching films from a past era because the technology is not as good or whatever, especially modern films. But I think that there is something that... And this isn't me being old and being like, old films are better, because I don't always agree. But I think that something you saw...
You're also not old.
Well, thank you, Kate.
You are the baby.
I am the baby on the show. I think that one thing that I always will appreciate older films for, as opposed to modern films, is the efficiency of time usage. Like, a new film has no problem being 2.5 hours long.
Yeah.
But you could not have a movie in the 70s or 80s that was 2.5 hours long. Like, that was a no-no.
Well, you wouldn't
intentionally do that, especially not in like the 60s. And I mean, you had stuff like Gone with the Wind, which feels like it's forever long.
Well, that's the 40s.
It's not even,
or the late 30s.
But it's also like a super dense subject material. But my point being is that economy of motion, economy of shots, fitting the most information into each scene, like using the film time wisely is something that older films, it was not a choice, it was a necessity in older films because of the technology, but it's a skill that I
also
think
because
a lot
of budget.
Right, well, that's what I mean. Like, the technology, the budget of the
like
technology.
if your film was a certain length, it had to go onto an extra roll of film.
Right.
Well,
that had to be duplicated for however many movie theater screens, which cost money.
Right,
like,
and also
it was
editing
expensive.
time and splicing film together and doing multiple shots and multiple takes, and like quick cuts were really difficult just because of technology. You had to physically cut film up and stitch it back together.
Absolutely.
And I think that...
Get out your safety scissors.
Yeah, I think it's something you could definitely... A lot of modern directors could definitely learn from that, but it's what Joe's talking about, where it's like, if you have a film of a specific era, and there is a long shot in it for some reason,
Like,
that's intentional.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think that that's kind of the beauty of a lot of old film is that deliberate use of everything is intentional. There aren't accidents in some of those films. Like, there are some directors that'll leave an accident in or leave, they play a little bit with the medium more, but there are other directors where their vision, they shoot the movie, they edit the movie, and you get exactly what they intended.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when you look at like Kubrick and something, the man was fucking possessed on a film to the point where there's a great story, and we'll circle back. We'll circle back to the book, but so he was shooting Dr. Strangelove, or How I Stopped Worrying and Learned to Love the Bomb, right? Yes. And like they wouldn't let him look at an actual B-52 cockpit, and they just. I think he had to use a magazine or something, but like the cockpit that's in that fucking movie is so good and so precise that the Army was like, this is almost indistinguishable from an actual B-52 cockpit, because that's the fucking thought he put into shit. And so kind of coming back, I think there are certain, it's why I'm kind of obsessed with the Wake, because that story seems so deliberate to me. The ending to it seems like it could not have been an accident, And so I don't know if it's good or bad. I don't know if I like it or don't like it, which I think is a much more kind of pertinent topic, right? I do know that I struggle to figure out if I'm missing anything.
I feel the same way about a lot of Grant Morrison's work. And it's one of the reasons why I like Grant Morrison so much is because I know for a fact that he's doing these things intentionally.
Yeah.
That everything that you see is there for a reason. And it feels rewarding to tease those things out and go, this is what he's trying to say.
And it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have, the thing is that's great about that is that like, clearly we don't have him. We don't have Grant Morrison on hand to ask, right? Like, I can't dig up Andrei Tarkovsky and be like, what did this shot mean? Tell me. And even if he did, John Lennon
could
said
if you
right?
had the Shroud of Turin.
John Lennon would get accosted by people after he left the Beatles, and people would be like, what did this song mean? This song is like shaped my entire life. This song means so much to me. What does it mean? And he's like, it's a fucking song.
Yeah.
It's a song. That's what it means. Like I could have had
a
good shit that morning and written a song about that. Like, it's a fucking song.
And that's the thing. Like, it doesn't matter what it means.
Yeah.
It means something. And you have to decide what it means to you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of the thing. It's like when you can get to that point where you're like, all right, I think I've decided that this is what it means. It feels right to me that this is where they were going for. And that is an excellent feeling because it's like kind of peeking behind the curtain. And that's kind of, I think that's the best feeling. It's like for me, for somebody who's curious like I am, like peeking behind that curtain, getting some kind of like, getting to a place where I've reconciled a work to myself. Like that's the best feeling ever. And it doesn't matter if it's like the end of the Maltese Falcon or the end of the Wake or like that scene we're talking about, right? Where like
the end of the Ninth Gate.
Yeah, I think.
Which, spoiler alert, not actually saying what happens, but it ends with Johnny Depp walking into light.
Yeah, that's just, it's very open to interpretation.
Yeah, it's like, what does that mean? Well, you have to figure it out, and you can kind of guess at what the intention was and go, well, I think it was something like this. But at the end of the day, it's just like, you need to decide what you think that means for yourself because the movie's not going to tell you.
Yeah.
Right now in my head, I'm writing a song about a poop, and it's like...
Oh, I do every morning.
A pile of life.
God damn, what have you been eating, Cade?
Cade, you're not supposed to eat those. I told you that.
Jared's going to have to extend the intro to be like, the episode for that book contains major spoilers for this book. Also Blade Runner, Cowboy Bebop, the Ninth Gate.
Cade's song about poop.
Cade's song about poop. Imagine.
I
film
think
about John Lennon.
I think that, I'm not going to extend the intro.
Don't do it.
I also think that that's a big difference between the way that you, Joe, and I specifically read works is you read it, something makes you think, a scene will make you go, what is that about?
Right.
And you will attack that scene in your mind by like, you're an archaeologist. You're excavating that scene. You want to dig into it as hard as possible, and I'm more of the mind of like how I feel about comics. I feel about fiction, I feel about film a lot of the same way that I will feel about like paintings and visual art, where it's like I see it, it's a part of me now,
Right.
and that's it. Like I've experienced that work, and that's enough for me to be like, I've seen that painting. What does it mean? I have no idea. But I experienced it, right? And like, and by experiencing it, I grew in some way that I may not at this moment understand.
Right.
But later in life, I may go, that reminds me of that scene from that one thing. And now I start to like, it pieces together in my head.
And I think that really informs the differences between us and the way that we consume media. And we've talked about this before. I have a big problem if an author goes, this thing, and I go, that thing doesn't make sense. Whereas you go, well, the author told me this thing, so who am I to contradict that?
Well, I've just got to, I'm going,
you just
I'm going to roll with it.
You accept what you're told, and I don't.
Well, and it's not only that I accept what I'm told, but I'm willing to buy it if you're willing to try to sell it to me.
Right.
And not necessarily if the sales pitch is successful, but the fact that you tried is enough for me to go, okay, go on. Like, I may not love it, but like I'm listening, you know?
Right, and neither of those are good or bad. They're just different styles.
An incredibly different way to appreciate or experience art. But like that's why I love fiction and love comic books, because and visual art as well, is because it exposes me to stuff that I'm not going to see in the real world. Like I'm not going to do any of the stuff in this book ever. Like I will not have a symbiote that teaches me kung fu and have a mantis friend. I want to. I probably won't. I'm going to say 80%. 80%.
You have not been taking the right drugs.
Right. Well, definitely not. 80% chance that I won't have this experience. And so by reading this book and just kind of letting it wash over me, it's like I get to have an experience I would never have anywhere else. And like whether I totally love it or not, it's like I've experienced something. And experiencing more things is better than not experiencing things at all in my mind. And that's how I like to read this stuff, you know?
And I also think that sometimes something can just have no meaning. I think there's quite specifically a movie by Luis Buñuel and that he consulted with Salvador Dali on. It's called Un Chien Andalou, which means an Andalusian dog. It's a 15-minute movie. I'm not going to fucking say anything about it. Just go and watch it. You tell me what that fucking means, okay?
Well, and it's the argument of, in my mind, the arts for art's sake.
Yeah.
It's not just arts for art's sake. It's arts for artists' sake. Like, they had to make that. They had to make it.
No,
there was a part of that artist that this thing was eating their brain.
Oh, no, that they were
and
compelled.
If they didn't get it out of their head, onto paper, onto film, into writing, whatever, it would destroy them. And so it's not just art for art's sake, it's art for the artist. Like, they made it. A lot of times they really don't give a shit if you see it or not.
Right.
Like, the point isn't about, I wonder what that person or these people will think of my work. It's just like, oh, finally, I got that out that I needed to get out, and now it's out there, and I've made it, and it can be experienced by the world, and if they like it, great. If they don't, great. Like, it's out there now. I've added something to the pool of art in the world, and I think that is why I'm willing to just go, what does it mean? It doesn't matter what it means to me. It doesn't matter what it means to other people, because it means something. And that's enough. Like, the fact that it has meaning.
Why has it got to be a pool of art? Why can't it just be a heap of art?
A heap of art, a pool of art. I like water metaphors.
Art,
I like water metaphors.
I like. Can it be a hill of art?
I like thinking of the universe as a liquid, even though it is not a liquid in any way.
I like to think of art as a big pile of stuff.
Just like add it to the heap.
Yeah, just throw it on there.
A heap is so, in my mind, like, it sits on top of something.
Yeah.
Where, like, a pool...
Well, that's the thing. Like, when you make new art, like, you're piling it on top of all the art that's ever come before. When you have a pool of art, like, you throw something in there, it just sinks to the bottom.
Or it's just, like, it all kind of becomes one, you know?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah, that's fair.
Different ways of looking at things.
Or you put it in a safe and bury it right off the coast of Springfield, and then you have to go and get it with your grandson, and... Then Mr. Burns tries to take it, but then he gets knocked out, and then the German relative of the person that the art already belonged to comes and gets it and drives away in their Porsche listening to Kraftwerk.
That could happen as well.
That happens a lot.
It does. But I think that, I think that the thing that kind of, unites us all is that ideas are important to us. And it doesn't matter if you're just like, okay, you took the time to tell me that idea, so regardless of what it means, I'm good with it. Or like, that idea conflicts with this idea, or I don't like that idea because you didn't do a good enough job of telling me about it, or like, obsessed with an idea means, right? It's like, the thought, I think there is something to be said for the fact that like, you took the time to tell us an idea, so like, good on you, right? Like,
Yeah,
maybe you didn't meet this completely arbitrary and totally, subjective list of fucking, articles that you have to meet in order for me to buy your idea or care about your idea. But like, at the end of the day, like, all art, all storytelling, all media is about conveying an idea. And if you can successfully convey your idea, then like, it's Miller time, right? Like you have fucking done something that's important. Being able to convey ideas is important. And I think that's down to like the smaller ideas, like, good, like, light is good and dark is bad, down to the more complex ideas about like that fucking Watchmen gets into, or anything by Grant Morrison, where he's just like, the world is a mystical place, and this work is a blah, blah, blah. And I'm weaving a spell with my words, and you're captured now, and oh my God, and I'm a mystical being from the 18th dimension. Right? Because that's, and then like the drugs wear off, and he's like, why am I naked in a Denny's parking lot? Oh, I'm going to fucking go write a story about it.
The question is not, why am I naked in a Denny's parking lot?
It's like,
why aren't you naked in a
right.
Denny's parking lot?
Why isn't everybody else naked in this Denny's parking lot with me? So I think that, there's something to be said for that. And I think that the way you digest ideas is important, but not as important as the fact that you're getting them, right? And like, you're putting yourself out there to get them. Mm. And that's why...
Hume was the first one to say that.
Huh?
Why aren't you naked in this Denny's parking lot?
Who was?
Hume.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, I mean, he totally was. I mean, the whole of empiricism follows from that.
Totally.
But, I mean, right. I think he kind of got a little bit of Socrates in there, too. And why are you not naked in this auditorium?
Well, that's more Diogenes, really. Which is,
fair.
why aren't you naked in this barrel?
That's fair.
This barrel next to this Denny's.
Next to this Denny's.
Ye ancient Greek.
So
Denny's.
crazy.
Next to the pile that is life.
Yeah.
The pile of life.
Denny's is Greek, right?
Yeah.
Totally. Sure and the Greeks, like, they didn't have museums because it was ancient times. There was nothing to put in them yet. So they just took all their art and just put it in a big pile in the center of town.
That's true. It's true.
Next to the Denny's.
True. They're like, that's everywhere now. Come back in like 1,000 years where it's really rare. Then we'll care about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally.
So have we said everything that we can about creature tech?
I mean, have we said everything?
About life.
I, in particular, have not said anything about a dwarf with a boner riding a unicycle.
Specifically about creature tech.
Okay, yeah, I'm done.
Okay.
I wish there was a dwarf with a boner riding a bike.
I mean, I'm sure somewhere there is.
How did you guys feel about the ending with the healing water?
Like, I don't know how to put it in more precise terms than that.
I mean, I
get that he's making a sacrifice, but at that point I was like,
but is he though? Because he's like, I love this girl, but I want to heal her to make her not ugly anymore.
Well, no, it's I can use this to get the symbiote off me, or I can heal this girl.
Right.
And he makes the selfless action.
Is it selfless, though? Because, like, that's the girl he's going to nail.
Well, I think...
Yeah, but the thing, at that point, you already established that he really doesn't care that much about her gross eye or weird hand.
So why heal her, then?
To give her a better life that
she
gives him
kung fu powers.
I went back and flipped through parts of it that she's in. She never complains about her hand or her eye.
Yeah.
And that felt like an odd character moment to me.
No, but could she have done more with her life if people hadn't picked on her the way that they did?
Right.
Would she be elsewhere?
That's a dangerous argument.
But also, like, her happiness in the book is not portrayed as having anything to do with her physical deformities, but everything to do with the fact that, wow, someone's being nice to me for the first time ever. I am now happy. Like, it has that moment to me, and I get it, he is making a selfless act in some ways. It felt unnecessary to me because she's already happy because he treats her well. He doesn't need anything more than that. Like,
Yeah.
she is happy. And if he continues to treat her well, like, the thought processes are that she'll either continue to be happy or she'll get tired of him, like real life. But this felt so out of place with the way that that relationship was going.
Yeah.
And I read it and I thought, that's a really interesting way to end that story. And I kind of wondered what you guys thought about it.
I mean, I
didn't
guess
think
I never
about it
thought
that-
about it like that, but that's an interesting point.
I didn't think about it that much. I was just like, oh, well, he had the power to heal, so he healed. Like, I guess to me, it's kind of the obvious thing to do.
But, you know, like, could he have not, like, gone to a hospital and found a kid with, like, terminal cancer and healed them? Like, could that have not been used to heal?
Maybe there was not a hospital in the small bumfuck town there.
I
could he
feel
not-
like it ties into the simplicity of the story.
And I got it.
Like, on a certain level, this is a simple, straightforward story. Like, it's not really going to go into depth about, like, oh my God, we have the power to heal. And, like, they have this little scrap that they could keep and try and, analyze and replicate, or they could just use it and then it's gone forever.
And I think that was one of the moments that, like, kind of didn't work for me as well in the book.
Yeah.
Just because unlike a lot of the other moments that felt like, wow, this is a crazy, weird, new, different thing. It felt like very grounded in real emotions and real thought processes for the first time. It wasn't like, here's Mantis Heaven. It was like, you have the power to heal somebody. Like, who do you choose? Why do you choose it? Like, he did it without her consent. Maybe she didn't want to be healed. Like, the following panels lead me to believe that she did because of the smile on her face. But, like, it felt odd. And so...
I think it feels odd because it ties into this, like, he's making a sacrifice to make her pretty because what girl wouldn't want to be pretty?
Yeah.
And and looking at it that way, that is fucked up because that's like, of course.
And
like,
also
everybody wants to look normal and the same, and that, like,
He does it from... He's, like, hiding. He,
Yeah.
like, does it anonymously. And that felt weird, too.
yeah,
Because, like, why wouldn't you be like, hey, I have the power to heal you if you want it?
he's like, well,
Like, how
this
do you-
way I
let's
get
have an
badass
adult-
and badass kung fu powers.
Like, how about we have a conversation about this like adults? And I
Yeah.
get where Toby's coming from. That's like, this is not a book about that. And so, like, that would have felt even more out of place. But you also could have just not had that scene in the book. And
well, I think you need to. I mean, like, I agree. I don't think it's a book about that, but like, I also think that, and like, now that I'm thinking about it, I can't help but think about it in this kind of, it's a little fucked up.
right, it's the same kind of thing that makes me upset about the ending of Shrek. Side note. But at the end of Shrek, where she has spoilers for a 20-year-old movie, however
God damn.
goddamn old that
Contains
is.
spoilers for Blade Runner, Cowboy
and
Bebop.
Shrek.
Was Shrek really 1995?
It was a while ago. I don't think it was 95.
No, it was like 15 years.
It's almost 20, though, I would bet. Anyway, at the end of the movie Shrek, she has a choice to choose between being the human form and the ogre form, and it always made me feel a little bit uncomfortable that she chose to be an ogre because it sent this weird message of, like, you like things that are like you only, and not at all if you're different than that other person. And, like, it made me really uncomfortable.
You mean that Shrek could only be with her if she was an ogre?
And she only wanted to be with Shrek if they were both ogres. And I was like, all of that felt, like, really odd to me, even when I was younger.
2001, by the way.
Yeah. So 15 years.
Yeah.
Almost. So,
I mean, what I have to say about that is, donkey!
yeah. And I don't know. I just feel like there are moments in media in which these choices are made. They're primarily about women. They're primarily about women's looks. And they always feel weird to me.
Yeah, I mean, I felt that way about Titanic. I was like, Titanic would have been much more interesting to me if it had been, like, could you have told that same story if it had been an upper-class man and the woman in steerage? That would have had a completely different feel.
Right.
But it probably would have been closer to the fucking truth, right?
Maybe.
There are a lot of fucked up things about Titanic.
Yes.
Yeah, the boat
But
goes
the set
down.
design and costuming, not, actually. Beautifully done.
What's her name from Misery?
Kathy Bates
I
as
love
the
her.
unsinkable Molly Brown.
I love Kathy Bates.
She's
Anyway,
great in that. Yeah, she is. And
This is one of those moments in fiction or in media for me that I'm like, uncomfortable about this because I'm not sure what the author's trying to say about
Yeah,
women and about women's looks. And
I
it
agree with
makes
you.
me feel weird. So,
I'm there. Now I feel weird too. Are you happy now?
Yeah, kind of.
We can go get a weird Sunday after this.
As long as everyone feels as weird as I do.
No, I'm definitely a little uncomfortable now.
Yeah. Anyway,
Should we take off our clothes?
that was the only... yes, but
Okay.
I already have mine off and you know this.
Well,
that was the only other thing I wanted to bring up about the book. But if you guys don't have anything else you guys
No,
want to
I'm
talk
good.
about, then
I mean, I really enjoy this, and I think it's worth a read. Like,
Oh, definitely.
just for the ideas, the fact that it's got a kung fu symbiote, it's really neat, and it's worth kind of. I mean, it's worth looking past the flaws that it has, and there are some, but overall, this is going to be. It's a lot of fun to read, and it's a lot of fun to share with people that are younger and
Yeah,
people you want to be
absolutely.
like, hey, comic books are not just superheroes. Check this out.
Yeah.
Doug TenNapel's art is fucking incredible. I love it. It's very simple. I love his, like, I don't know if he uses a pen or a brush, but like,
I think he must use a brush.
I mean, it's just wonderful. I never get tired of looking at his art.
But yeah, it's not necessarily for me, but this is the kind of book that I would love to hand to a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
Because I think it's the kind of thing that they're going to go, wow, that's awesome.
Absolutely.
What else do you have that's like this?
Yeah.
And
I
I
agree.
can go, oh my word, so many things.
So many things.
All of the things
All of the
All
things.
of the things.
All
All
of
of the
them.
things. All of the things.
in
So-
the pile that is life.
And I just say I don't have anything else to give you because Dan DiDio broke into my house and burned all my comics.
God, fucker.
So,
So recommendations?
I had to
So
fight him off
let's-
the other day
yeah, he does that.
with a
He's
salami. It was.
I don't want to know this story.
No,
Joe,
it was actual salami.
what would you...
No, it was like the only thing I had.
no,
I was like,
no,
get the fuck
I
away.
said it on...
Dan DiDio
No,
is terrified of
it-
salami.
That's not true.
No, it is.
I've seen him eat a whole salami by
No,
himself.
that was a pepperoni.
Oh, okay. Well, what's the difference, Joe?
Salamis are
As
bigger.
As an
Salamis are
Italian,
bigger.
have I offended you?
A little bit.
Let's recommendations. Let's do that part of the show.
I brought a redemption pick. It's something that I love to read. It's something I haven't read in a while, and I'd really like to talk about. It's Daredevil, the Man Without Fear miniseries. It's a 4-issue miniseries put out by Marvel Comics with a story by Frank Miller and art by John Romita Jr. And it basically retells Matt Murdock's origin. And there's some great stuff in it. I think it's really a restrained Frank Miller. It's a lot of fun to read. And it's why I fell in love with Daredevil as a character. It's why he means so much to me now, and why I enjoy Mark Waid's stuff so much, is because it really sets him up as a man without fear. And it's just one of my favorite Daredevil stories to read. And so I wanted to bring it back because I think Mannix had pitched it for me at one point, but I wanted to get in here and just kind of, I figured I'd throw it out there. I'm kind of on a losing streak lately, and I hate you all because of it, but that's okay. I mean, it's not manifesting as like a brain tumor or as an ulcer yet. So, yeah, I really like it. So Daredevil, the Man Without Fear.
Sweet. Cade, what have you brought for us this week?
So I brought something that's probably not going to get picked, which is good because I've already had 2 picks in a row get chosen.
Yeah, you're getting greedy.
Cade, you could go for the hat trick this week, though.
So my pick is very weird, and you guys are probably not going to like it. But I bought the Image Humble Bundle.
Yeah.
And got all the stuffs, all the things. Because that was a hell of a deal for $18.
Oh, yeah. It was insane.
And one of them stood out to me that I didn't think I'd ever give a chance. But I'm glad I did, and that is The Walking Dead: A New Beginning. This is kind of a relaunch for the series at issue 127, and it's volume 22. And it takes place 2 years after a big war that The Walking Dead had led up to. Introduces a bunch of new characters, a bunch of new shit. It's like, it's a new beginning. It was a relaunch that he was doing. So I read it, and then I read all the issues that have been out since it, which there are only like 4 after this new trade. But that's my pick. I thought it was very well done.
Neat.
Nice.
So, Chart is doing his Year of Image.
Mm-hmm.
This week I am doing my Week of Image. This is week 1 of the Week of Image.
Week 1 of 1.
And I brought The Wicked and the Divine, Volume 1, The Faust Act by Kieran Gillian and Jamie McKelvey. And I pitched stuff by them before. I pitched Phonogram. I think Uncanny Avengers has been pitched. I'm not sure if I was the one who pitched it.
It was Young Avengers, right?
Or, excuse me, Young Avengers. And this is their new work coming out through Image. It's a really interesting story. Basically, every 90 years, 12 gods incarnate in the bodies of 12 teenagers, live for 2 years, and then die. And the story, like, it begins back in the 1920s at the very end of the last cycle, and then immediately picks up in 2014 at the beginning of the next cycle. And so it's set in contemporary United Kingdom with these 12 gods showing up and doing crazy stuff. And it's sold through the eyes of this teen girl who is following them as one would like a pop idol.
Right.
It's a really interesting story. The art is phenomenally good. The colors
Jamie
are
McKelvey,
gorgeous.
so-
Yeah. Like, way back when Phonogram first came out, I pitched it as, these guys are doing interesting things. There's some janky elements to this, but I want to see where they're going because I think it's good, going to be a good place. That was like back in 2009.
Yeah, I borrowed it that first time you pitched it.
And they have both gotten phenomenally better over those years. I'm amazed at how much they've grown. And this really demonstrates how far they've come as artists. And I really like it. It's one of my favorite books that's coming out by Image right now. I just picked up the trade because Kaylee very nicely gave me a Barnes & Noble gift card for Christmas.
Nice.
And so I went and picked it up for $10. So that's my pitch. Wicked and the Divine.
And this was also in the Image Humble Bundle.
It was.
So maybe you
Yeah,
got that.
no, it totally was. Yeah,
Maybe you got
absolutely.
that and read that. Also.
I love that Image Humble Bundle.
I actually had not read that yet because I knew Tobiah was going to pitch it.
Which I looked into it, and if you don't care about getting all the extra stuff, you can choose to pay $0 and get like the very core set of
I think
things.
it's over now.
It definitely is over now, but that is
okay.
good to know for the Humble Bundles of the future.
Yes.
Yes.
Humble Bundles of the future.
And I mean, it would be nice if you
HBOGF.
would pitch them a little bit of cash, because I mean, it is for charity.
Right, yeah.
But if you just want the books and you're like, I'm going to buy stuff from them later,
Right.
you can pitch. You
Well, you
can pay
always
nothing
send
and just get
money
the core
to
stuff.
those charities too.
Right.
Like, if you find out
Yeah.
what charity it is and you're like, I'm broke, it's going to end before I get paid or whatever, and it's like, you can just pick up the bottom tier for free later. You can send your money to whatever charity you'd like.
Absolutely.
So, Chad, what do you got?
Not in the Image Humble Bundle, I don't think. I don't remember. I don't think it's in there.
But it is an Image book.
But it is an Image book because it's week. Well, I don't remember of the weeks of Image again. I am bringing a relaunch of a series that I enjoyed very much and something we talked about during our Invincible The Long Run. I'm not bringing Invincible. I am bringing Tech Jacket, but I'm not bringing Tech Jacket Volumes 1 or 2. I am bringing Tech Jacket Volume 3.
Whoa!
Perfect.
Which is the not Robert Kirkman written Tech Jacket, which is the new series, the ongoing right now. And Volume 3 trade paperback contains the 2014 Tech Jacket issues 1 through 6. And I think it's an awesome jumping on point. If you've never read Tech Jacket before, if you've never read Invincible before, it doesn't really tie into the Invincible universe. It's a really sweet story about a kid who gets this it's like this sci-fi tech armor from an alien species, and it's like a symbiote with him, and he goes on crazy space adventures and fights aliens and does cool stuff, and it's awesome. I love it. It's super fun, and the art is very colorful and very vibrant, very anime influenced, and just like super cool. It kind of looks like animation cells a lot of the time, and I really dug it. I think it was awesome, and I love sci-fi stuff, and it was just like a fun sci-fi superhero book, and really cool, touching family moments in this as well, because he has a really interesting and cool relationship with his dad, who's kind of like in the satellite watchtower, watching him on the jobs. Mm-hmm. He's kind of like in the background of that, so knows he's a superhero. He's not hiding it from his family and anything, and it's really cool. And this is a great relaunch. I liked the early Kirkman stuff a lot. I liked it more when he was in Invincible, but this felt really, really cool. So
now, did he get a start in Invincible?
No.
Okay, so it was that Tech Jacket stuff?
Yep.
Okay.
It was the Tech Jacket mini, and then he eventually folded that into the Invincible universe after it got canceled.
Oh, okay.
Which is why Tech Jacket shows up in Invincible, and I had no idea who the hell he was supposed to be. But everybody was like, it's Tech Jacket.
Right.
Tech Jacket.
Yeah. And it's a weird name because Tech Jacket always made me think of like a jacket, like a bomber jacket or like a members only jacket that like had pockets for all your tech.
A jacket like Batman's utility belt, but as a jacket.
Well, not even like it has cool stuff in it. It just has like lots of pockets where you could put like your cell phone or your iPad or like your headphones and your iPod.
Are any of you familiar with the term somatic cessation?
Nope.
Yes.
Fucking the word jacket. It's when you say a word over and over again until it just sounds like meaningless. Like it doesn't feel like a real word.
Satiation.
Satiation, yes.
Jalopy is that word. This is my favorite word for that. Also,
Wood
gurney.
is mine.
Cape.
Gurney.
I remember once laying in bed and just being like, wood. That's not a fucking word. What
Scuba.
word has that sound in it?
Say scuba.
That's not a real fucking word. It can't be a word.
Wasn't scuba originally short for something?
Yes.
Self-contained underwater breathing apparatus.
There you go.
I just like that scene in Venture Brothers where like Brock's doing pull-ups and Hank's like, say scuba. Say scuba. I love that show. Anyway,
Jesus Christ! I just remembered that the Venture Brothers special is tonight.
Yeah,
or 2 days ago when this comes out.
Yeah. Anyway, Joe, what would you like to read?
The Wicked and the Divine.
The Wicked and the Divine.
I'm gonna vote for Daredevil.
All right. I'm gonna vote for the Wicked and the Divine too. It's interesting because Toby was like, "Hey, are you gonna put this? Is this part of your 52 weeks of Image?" And I was like, "I don't think so. I'm not really digging it that much." So, but I want to talk about it because I think there's stuff to unpack in there.
Yeah, like I wasn't super enthusiastic about it as it was coming out, reading it month to month, and I really want to read I want to read the trade and go how does this read as one piece? Because I feel like it's going to be a lot better reading it as a single thing.
I'm in the same boat. I definitely did not enjoy reading it for Top of the Stack as much as I think I will enjoy it in the trade. So I'll let you know.
I did not come to you and ask because I knew you were not going to recommend Walking Dead Volume 22.
You were correct.
Yeah.
All right.
I started reading Walking Dead in its first couple years, and I quickly just stopped because I do not like it at all.
I made it through Volume 7, and then I had caught up to the singles, and I was like, well, I'll come back to it when there's a lot out. I haven't done that part yet.
I picked it up in the store, Volume 7 or something like that, opened it to a random page, closed it, put it back on the shelf, and said, nope.
Yeah, you're not really for the gore horror
no.
stuff.
I knew looking at one page that was not a comic book that I would ever appreciate.
I think at that point, there was just zombies fucking everywhere, and I was just tired of them.
There's zombie porn in that book?
That book is all zombie porn.
Oh, yeah.
I did not know that there's zombies fucked
big old rotting zombie dick and
oh, well, awful. Okay. Well, now, Kate, if you pitched it like that, I totally would have picked that book. Now I'm disappointed. All right, anyway.
Interestingly, most mammals that aren't humans have a bone in their penis, and humans do not.
Fun facts.
And yet we call them boners.
True animal facts.
True animal facts with Tobias Panchin.
And on that note, read The Wicked and Divine, with The Wicked and the Divine.
Yes.
And we'll see you next week.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
We love you.
Do we?
View from the Gutters does not love you.
Thank you for listening to View from the Gutters. I hope our recommendations have inspired you to go out and find some new comics you'll enjoy. Join us next time for a discussion of our selected title, but like every week, we encourage you to read all of the recommended books. In the meantime, please leave us an iTunes review. It really does help new listeners find the show. You can also like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube, and follow us on Twitter at ViewFRTHGutters. Feel free to email us at contact@viewfromthegutters.com. Please send us any questions, comments, or recommendations you might have. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as we post new videos every week. And thanks again for listening. And as always, keep reading.